Hello, Creatively Awakened Collective. I hope you're having a beautiful Thursday. I am here with Titina, one of my most favorite people that I've met in the past year, to be honest. Titina and I are in this amazing business program together. And every conversation we've had has been so amazing. So I am super excited to have her here. To interview her. And so I'm just going to do a little introduction and then let her kind of follow that up. So Titina Van Hoorn, how do you pronounce your last name?
Van Hoorn.
Van Hoorn, okay. Is a shamanic practitioner and coach who works energetically and creatively with clients to release unconscious stories and core beliefs to create a life of passion, grace, and ease. Her work benefits those who have felt stuck, confused, or in emotional pain in their current lives. And I know Titina is also a jewelry designer. She is a woman of many talents. And I would just love to hear more about just your journey to shamanism, and if you want to add anything else to your introduction. And if you are watching in the Facebook group, go ahead and say hi and let us know if you have any questions you would like Titina to answer as we're chatting.
Thank you so much, Mara. I'm actually really excited. I've been kind of excited all day about talking to you. And thank you. Hello, everybody. Mara is also one of my favorite people that I've met this year. She inspires me deeply, and we really do share a love of creativity. And actually, that's a good question that you asked me, Mara, as to how I came to shamanism. So I started off life actually pretty nerdy at school. I was an academic, A student, really good at math, this, that, the other, was, good at a lot of different things. I had a creative side, but that was I knew how to give you the right answer during exams. I was really good at taking exams. So I kind of almost felt like I had everybody fooled into thinking I was actually pretty smart. And yet, I felt something throughout my life that actually I wasn't smart enough or good enough. It never was good enough. And by the time I graduated, with a slew of A's and, offers from universities, I was going to go and study languages because I speak 4 languages. And I was like, okay, because that was the thing that if I did that, I would get more A's and more recognition, et cetera, et cetera. And then I took a year off because I had graduated a year early. I was 17 and went actually into this deep questioning. And part of it had been because I had gone through an eating disorder. I'd gone through anorexia and then bulimia and then got into therapy. And it was in therapy that a whole other world opened up to me. And it was a whole other world that I had not accessed for myself. I knew about it because I'd always loved being creative. And I'd always loved going deeply into life itself. I asked deep questions from when I was, little, but it didn't feel like there was a place for me in life until I had this kind of breakdown because of my eating disorder and had to seek help. And it was from that place that I started to have to access a whole other place, one that wasn't based on people pleasing and, you know, getting the answers from the outside. It was actually getting the answers within. So kind of fast forward a bunch of years, I was actually I was married and 2 kids, feeling kind of deeply unhappy. Everything was perfect on paper, but inside it wasn't. And I had done therapy. I'd done a bunch of personal development work. And it was during the time that my daughter was born, and there was something about having a girl and feeling like I don't feel like I'm living the best life that I could as a woman, and I really, really, really want to, give that example to my daughter. So I spent hours and hours nursing her and thinking about this and listening to, Abraham Hicks tapes and things like that about and what was available to me locally was actually a year-long transformational journey with shamanism. I mean, just so happened to be here in this little town in North Idaho that I live in. And it wasn't feasible for me to go anywhere else with 2 small kids, so I started doing that. And it just started to open up this whole other world of that really answered a lot of questions that have been living in me and then some, So, I mean, that's kind of the not so short version of how I got into shamanism.
That's beautiful. And I love that you answered the call, right? You felt this longing and you went searching. And, this is something that's so interesting. I was talking to someone about this last night of, what, like, where does that awakening spark come from?
Mm.
Because I can think it sounds like that was your spark of awakening, that this little seed was planted. And yes, maybe it was birthed from just this discomfort that you were experiencing. And I have, a similarly random experience where in 2009, I had a bunch of shoulder pain and I went to a chiropractor, and that chiropractor turned out to be this holistic chiropractor who actually turned me on to Abraham Hicks, which I feel like Abraham Hicks is a gateway spirituality. We're talking about like the gateway drug of spirituality.
I love that.
Abraham Hicks or Louise Hay or anyway. drop in the chat if you're watching what your gateway drug of choice for spirituality was. I listened to many, many hours of Hay House Radio. But yeah, that question of like, how do we even conjure that seed of awakening, and like what's even going on there? And I know you work a lot with like purpose and alignment, and I feel like that this sort of speaks to that like, how do we know we're out of alignment, and how does that seed like come? I mean, I guess if you're here watching this, the seed has arrived or arose already. But yeah, just for people who are, just to kind of put it out in the field, like what do you?
Well, I love the fact that you use the word seed. That's actually one of my favorite words to use. And there's this great word in Greek that I can never pronounce. It's either enteleki or enteleki. And what it is, it's the information that's coded into a seed that allows it to grow into what it's supposed to grow. And it's like it's there already, and all it needs is the right conditions, the right soil, the nurturing, the soil has to be prepared, it needs the sunlight, it needs the care for it to burst forth. It's not that you have to get it from anywhere else, it was already there. So I think that what happens is that the ignition of the opening of that seed happens when one of those conditions or several of those conditions start to be met in some way. And it could be pain. I mean, here in the Northwest in the Northwest Pacific where I live, we often get forest fires, and there's that thing where the pine trees, during forest fires, they release the pine cones, and that is actually the way that the seeds are planted. So it's actually through fire, So it could be as much through fire as planting it in moist soil with the right fertilizer and the right sunlight.
That gave
And
me chills, by the way, when you started talking about the seed is encoded. And so it's almost like, I mean, do you like we're born with this program ready to run at a certain time?
Yep. That's exactly right. In fact, you mentioned that I make jewelry, and actually one of the pieces of jewelry that I make, and it's actually kind of a service, I call it a seed of potential, believe it or not.
Ooh.
And what it is that I'll work with a client, and we'll get to the real, that quality that they're really wanting to see grow in their life. And it's one that's already there, but we need to kind of come back with intention and reminders, right? And it's what's nice about it is not to keep holding it in front like this big sign everywhere you go. Okay, this is what I want, this is what I want, this is what I want, because that's kind of again in that spirit of uphill struggle. But it's when we have metaphor and image and words and sort of like a piece of jewelry on us that kind of we feel without even having to think about it. That's what will actually continue us on that intention. And it's not like you're making anything happen. What you're doing is you keep reconnecting and coming into alignment with who you were meant to be anyway. So the more in alignment you are to your vision, right? The vision pulls you as opposed to you having to push yourself to the vision. So that's why I think images, they work on a different part of us, like in dreams, and they work with our sort of our desires. And, as you know, Mara, that kind of way of being, which is kind of in some ways more juicy and passionate, is a whole lot more likely to keep us on the path of what we want than, okay, now we've got to build the business plan. And then I have to do steps 1, 2, and 3. There's nothing wrong with that, but the order needs to be shifted, right? That's in support of. So, so yes, that seed of potential is the one that's really connected to who you already are in your essential form, in depending on your belief system, to spirit, to that part of you that is spirit, to your soul. So.
I love that. That's gorgeous. And I'm curious, for people watching, like, what are some of the signs of being out of alignment, or some of the signs of, an untapped potential that people might not quite realize, like,
Mhm.
oh, that's what's happening here?
That's a great question because a lot of times we're not conscious of it. Um, but, in its simplest form, it's feeling stuck. It's feeling like you don't have the motivation to get up in the morning. Your life feels kind of black, feels kind of gray. And if we're going to continue with the theme of creativity, it feels colorless.
Mm,
It feels there isn't a passion in there. And by passion, I don't mean that we have to be jumping around like we're on 5 cups of espresso. It's not like that. It's just it's a glow. It's like an inner fire is glowing, and it feels like that there's excitement about the day in a way that motivates you. So the lack of that can often come in the relationships that we choose to be in as well, that do not celebrate who we are. Addiction is a really big
mm,
indication of being out of alignment. For me personally, it was food, and I was also a cigarette smoker. And I actually don't beat myself up about it. I had things to learn with it, but it's not necessarily healthy for your body, right? And addictions are ways of kind of soothing ourselves because of the fact that we're not really where our true nature should be. So that's actually a really big one too. And sometimes being over busy, overwhelmed, and then of course ultimately there's dis-ease. There's physical dis-ease. More often than not, is the end of the line of having lived out of alignment with ourselves. And I tried with that carefully because I'm not saying, oh, it's your fault that you were sick. It's more like it's a sign. So one of the ways that to really find out whether you're in alignment with, with who you really are is look around the world, because the world reflects it back to you. Are you feeling kind of miserable about the way that the world is right now? There's a lot to hook into that way. Are we feeling judgmental? Are we feeling irritable? Are we lacking energy? Those are many ways that we can see that we're out of alignment. Do we feel kind of unsafe? That's a whole other place, and that can show up as I don't have enough money. I'm having anxiety attacks, things like
yeah,
that.
someone just wrote, I think anxiety reflects my misalignment within my life and within myself.
Right, right. Because your true nature is actually one where you're at peace. And again, I please know that I'm saying this with no judgment whatsoever. We each have that entryway, right? Just as we have that gateway drug with the spiritual thing, there's that thing that pushes us, um, if we choose to, and if we're ready to actually, it's telling us, hey, you are so much more than this. And it's really just a warning, a little red flag or warning.
Yeah, I mean, I even like to think of it as an invitation, like,
Perfect.
these friction, and of course, there's the ubiquitous analogy of the oyster, right? That the oyster
Right.
can't make a pearl without having an irritation.
Right.
and
Right.
and that's really something that I feel like has really driven my creative practice. And that, like, when I'm really in that deepest turmoil and pain, I can really, galvanize that into like really, really beautiful, powerful artwork. And I'm looking at that piece behind you, and I see so many different elements and so much like rich contrast, and that just like really speaks to that. When we're really feeling something intense, that can
Mhm.
really be um an inspiration. And even if that's like intense numb or intense shutdown, or
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
numbness is a feeling, frustration is a feeling,
Yeah.
depression is a feeling, like all
Yeah.
these things are feelings. And we kind of, I think our society kind of like breaks them up into um like, oh, okay, well, when I'm being really productive and I actually feel like I'm in control of my directed energy, then that's good. And when I'm
Hmm.
not in that and I can't produce and I can't get done what I want to get done, then that's bad.
Hmm.
And there's just, I'm wondering if you could like speak a little bit to the range and how
Hmm.
that kind of plays into being able to live our purpose and being able to be in alignment. Does it mean we're out of alignment when we're not in that like perfect
Right.
productive moment?
Right. Well,
And what would
and that,
shamanism say about that? Sorry, I didn't
well,
know.
I mean, and that's an absolutely beautiful question right there, and a perfect one in terms of its connection to shamanism. One of the things that we work on in shamanism is awareness is the first thing, right? As you know, it's the thing that starts to get us moving, and we may not have been aware of the patterns that have kept us stuck or limited, or not being living who we are. And so once we step into having a little bit of awareness, a good way to do that is through projection, is like, what we judge in others quite often is something about us, right? Not necessarily that we have it, but we've created a relationship with that other person, and it's a reflection, really. Now, here's the thing. A lot of the time, we are told in a lot of, personal development stuff to, okay, let's clear that, and then you're done, and then everything's good, right? Well, actually, what if your soul's calling called you to have that experience, that challenge, that uncomfortable, that irritation, so that you could grow something like that pearl? So in the case of, for instance, haven't had a hard childhood. What did that make you do? Well, the way you had to survive, compensate, was through um, becoming self-sufficient, through becoming resourceful, creative, through being able to transform things that were hard into something that was beautiful. So the way to start to actually really clear is actually to be able to be aware of the gifts that came with it, and then to truly claim them and go,
Mm,
it puts you into a place not only of empowerment, but it has you understand your place in the world in a different way, and your relationship to others in a different way. And that's not to say that, if somebody's being abusive towards you, you're not going to keep staying there going, okay, I'm going to stay here because I've got all sorts of lessons to learn. No, remove yourself from that person, right? But it's for
that's the
you not
lesson,
to,
right?
yeah, that's part of the lesson, how to take care of yourself. So yes, I agree with you, Mara, that everything has not only something to teach us, but something on a really sort of intrinsic level to be gained. And as you gain that, truly gain it, not like, oh, I should, but oh yeah, this has really been a gift for me. There's something that happens where the pain and the challenge starts to dissolve a little. It creates a little bit more space, and then it opens you even more up for more gifts, because you're acknowledging that there are gifts in your life. So that's kind of how
Mm,
shamanism really, it sees your life as a soul's journey, as opposed to a series of things that you've had to react against. And it really kind of invites you to have a perspective of going from surviving to thriving. Yeah.
that's beautiful. I love that. And I know that you have an event coming up that I feel like would support people so beautifully to walk that path. And I'm
Mm,
wondering if you could share a little bit about it. It's a free event.
yeah.
And I'm going to put the link to sign up in the chat while you're talking about it.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Yes, next week, starting April 25th through the 29th, it's going to be 5 days of a journey that I'm offering for free. It's called 5 Steps to Ignite Your Sacred Calling. So it's very much along the lines of what we've been talking about today. I'll be guiding you. So it's not just a workshop in terms of learning, but a lot of, like the things that you do, Mara. It's an experiential thing. And so I'll be supporting you to step into that higher calling, that enteleki, that seed of potential that you have. And then learning some tools that will help to clear the way, as we talked, but also in the way, being able to accept gifts and being able to really truly ignite that. Because I know that if you are called to come to this workshop, and it's really sort of stepping into your soul's path,
Mm.
um, there is a richness to be had with, as Mara said, embracing it all and bringing it forth. And we do tend to get tripped up. There's a longing that happens, right? There's that calling that I had as I was nursing my daughter that was so strong. It was this deep, I couldn't name it, I couldn't put a finger on it. This will help you to probably put a finger on it if you don't have it, a name for it. And it'll also help you if you do have it, but you keep bumping up against something. It could be an extreme fear of visibility. It could be, am I good enough? It could be, is it even worth it? Is it going to work? Do I have anything to give? And we want to clear those things energetically and bring the gifts of why you've been feeling that way into transformation. So the ignition is almost like an alchemy between, sort of kind of coming from your smaller place and really truly stepping into your larger place. And hopefully that'll happen for you in a way that's energetic and experiential. So you don't have to think about it too much. And it's kind of like stepping that threshold. And so I really invite you to come and join me. It's 1 hour a day, live on Zoom. It'll also be streamed in my Facebook group, Unshakable Soul Clarity. And would love to have you there. Absolutely love to have you there.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. I'm looking forward to being there. And maybe after this interview, you can put your link to your Facebook group if people want to join that
Sure,
as
I'll
well.
do that. I will do that.
And
Yeah.
let's see if there's any questions in the chat. I don't see any questions at the moment. But yeah, do you have any just final thoughts as we wrap up?
Well, one of the things that I love about your work, Mara, is how simple and yet layered it is, and how you invite people on a journey as well. So I really feel that what you do is you're a creative shaman yourself.
Ooh.
So it's no,
I
I
love
really
it.
truly feel that. And I would really invite everybody to, you don't have to know sort of the energy tools that I know in order to start to be able to step into your journey. It just takes a willingness to set an intention and then see what happens with that. Mara, you mentioned the painting that I painted behind me, and that actually probably happened at a time when I was accessing a part of me that didn't feel good enough, that felt like it didn't matter, and that I had nothing to say and nothing to give. And so I just sat there in front of the canvas, put on some music, and gave myself permission for it to be whatever it needed to be, and started to pick up colors and what you do, right? And this is the image that came out of it. I did not plan for it. So I would invite everybody, with both with Mara, and if you choose to come to my event next week, come with that kind of expectation and that knowing that you have everything that you need already. You were
Hmm.
born that way.
Maybe we can all just put our hands on our hearts for a moment and just really feel that. Maybe you can say that again to Tina. You have everything you need. Not all of
Sort of
it. Not
channel
all of it.
things. You have everything that you need inside of you. You were born with that already.
Hmm. That just feels so juicy.
Yeah.
All right, everyone. Well, thanks for joining and hope to see you next week at Titina's Journey.
Beautiful. Much,
All
much love to
right.
you.